What up, bro?
How did you get started in the marketing industry?
So, this is a story that I've told a couple of times, and it's one of my favorites to tell. And the reason that is because I kind of stumbled into it at the start. So I came back, I went over to America. I'm from Australia, of course, went over to America for a soccer scholarship. And while I was over there, I kind of fell in love with marketing and entrepreneurship and business. And I really started to excel in those areas. And I eventually got a master's in, I think it was just business administration. And then my undergrad was in entrepreneurship. So I came back home to Australia and I was like, cool, I've got these degrees, I've got these awesome experiences, which I can talk about later as well. I should be able to get a job really quickly. And so I started applying for all of these jobs, like constantly applying, and I was getting nothing. I was calling people, I was messaging people, I was sending messages on LinkedIn, like doing whatever I could to get responses from people, and nothing. I got nothing at all. And so it came to a point where I was like, well, I need to make some money. So my dad suggested to me, he's like, well, Jace, like, you're pretty good at marketing. You've been talking about marketing with me. Like, I'm learning things from you. Why don't you start your own business? And I was like, okay, I'll give that a shot. And he said, you can work from me on the side and start your own business. And at the time, I actually didn't have any money because over in the US, I couldn't earn much money. So my bank account here in Australia was actually overdrawn $100. So overdrawn $50 because it was, didn't have any money in it for so long. So my mum gave me $100. So I had $50 to pay off the debts and then $50 to actually live with. And I used $25 of it to buy a basketball because I was bored at the time, like trying to wait for, finding these jobs. And so once my dad said, go all in and start your own business, I was like, all right, cool. So we're actually on a road trip. I came back home and I told my mum that night, late at night, I said, Mum, like, I want to start my own business. I'm going to do websites, Facebook ads. I want to, post on social media for people. And she goes, okay, great. I went to sleep that night and she came in the next morning and woke me up and said, Jason, I actually have a client for you. And I was like, a client, tired. I was like, a client for what? And she goes, for your business. I've got a client for you. And I was like, okay, cool. And then that day I met with someone and explained a little bit about what I could do because I've had some background in marketing and building some websites, and offered him a price of like $30 an hour because I had no idea what I was doing. And he said, yep, cool, done. So we agreed to that, and I used my last $25 that I had to my name and spent it on a domain registering and getting like Wix or something set up for this client. And that's how I got started in this marketing industry. Just from there, it wasn't like, oh, that's my start, and then boom, all of this success and growing a business and growing a team and stuff like that. There was a lot of, trial and error and a lot of mistakes, but yeah, really that's how I got started in marketing.
Yeah, right. That's quite the story, mate. I like it. I've heard it so many times, and I like it every time. So, mate, while we're having a laugh, what are some fun facts about yourself you can share?
A couple fun facts really were, one is for so long before I wanted to be an entrepreneur that I wanted to be a professional soccer player. It was actually, Chris, I actually found, I have this dream book. I brought in all my books the other day, and I have this dream book when I was I was 14 or something.
I remember when I bought
it. Yeah, and you freaking found it a couple of months ago and dug it up and said, oh, I want to be a professional soccer player. And I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, that was one thing. I've lived in England, US, Australia. I've lived all over Australia. Melbourne, I was born in Melbourne. I didn't really live there. I was too young to remember. Sydney, Gold Coast, Brisbane, and now back down to the Gold Coast. And yeah, that's kind of some fun facts, I guess. Not so fun.
Just more some facts.
Yeah.
All right, and I know you're still young, but what do you reckon your biggest career accomplishment is?
I would say last week. Actually,
what happened last week?
Getting the man behind the camera on full time. Look, I think that some of the big ones are obviously, you know, getting myself to full-time wage, getting Chris to full-time wage, like that was huge for us. You know, crossing the 6-figure mark, crossing multiple 6 figures, like, you know, that's some of the cool stuff. But I think one of the biggest things was like bringing on one of my best friends to work with us was definitely one of the biggest career accomplishments so far.
Yeah, mate, I like it as well. All right, now that we've done more of the about you, how about we get into it, eh?
Yeah.
So what's probably, like, now we're going more into the marketing, so
Yep.
what's probably the funniest thing you've done related to sales and marketing?
Yeah, so I have an interesting story. So when I talked about this briefly before, when I was in New York City, I actually was working for a New York City real estate company. And when I was selling real estate, and I was on an internship and I didn't have any money. So like I was living, so I got this apartment that I found on Craigslist, and I found it on Craigslist, and I was living like so far away up in New York, like paying, $1,000 a month just to live there. And it was random as, and I would go into all of these meetings with all of these big shots who had lots of money, all of this expensive stuff. And I just had like a couple $100 suit that mum bought me that didn't really fit. And I went into one of these meetings, and the person that I was interning for offered the client a deal, and they said, hey, like, here's the deal. I think it's a great deal. We'll be able to do this and that. And then the person turned around and said to us, he goes, in pretty aggressive terms, he said, I just last effing week I bought my effing wife a handbag for double that price. F you guys, I'm walking out of the deal. And I was like, whoa, that was crazy. But then it kind of gave us an opportunity to come back and work harder in other deals. And then we actually got them a deal and ended up working with him, even though this guy, I think I was 19, maybe 20 years old, this massive guy swearing at me. That was pretty intense. That was probably one of the funniest things that happened to me in sales and marketing.
All right, so on your personal page, like your Instagram,
yep,
you talk a lot about productivity, habits, and behavioral patterns of successful people.
Yep.
If you summarize, what are the 3 most important traits for a salesperson or business owner?
I would say the first one is being relentless. There's one thing that stumbles upon all business owners is you need to problem solve. There's such a big problem is people come to me and they're like, oh, Jason, I don't know how to set up this Facebook ad account. And I'm like, to be quite honest with you, Google that. Definitely Google that, because it's ridiculous that you would come to someone for such a small little thing. And I understand, look, everyone starts, I had questions when I was getting started, but being relentless and being able to problem solve and breaking through all of those walls all the time consistently is so big. And I think that's number 1. And then number 2, obviously being a problem solver. And then the number 3 thing I think that's really, really important as a salesperson and as a business owner, and it's not really a trait, but it's more so a thing that you should be doing is be people always talk about, oh, I want to be the next Gary Vee or the next Russell Brunson. Be the next yourself. At the start, I was trying to be Gary Vee, trying to be Russell Brunson or Tony Robbins, and they're just not me. My personality is a little bit more relaxed. I like having a beer on a Friday. I like, we spent the morning watching football, American football. That's who I am, and I need to showcase that. And I think that that's the most important thing, and especially in sales as well, is you need to be yourself constantly, because people will relate to you. Even if they don't like the same things or have the same interests, at least, they know that you're being authentic. So those are the big 3 for me.
Nice. All right, mate. So what are 3 tips for businesses suffering through the current crisis?
Yeah. Okay. So I put together a post about this, and what I did in the post is I talk about for restaurants or for marketing agencies specifically as well, is that they need to use their clients, so restaurant clients, they need to sell things in advance. So what I did, and sell the things in advance for cheaper. So one thing, this is very, very practical. I'll get into some broader things later, but the first thing that I would do is, if you cannot operate right now, you need to start bringing in cash. You need to start financing your pay. You need to keep your employees, keep the lights on, the rent. So what you should do is sell things in advance. So what I made up something called gift card futures. And what you should do is sell gift card futures at a 20, 30, 40% discount. So say if you're in a restaurant, you sell a $100 gift card and you give them $100 worth of food and stuff like that, but actually only charge them $70, but they have to purchase it now. And that's really good because that will keep your lights on. And then in the future, $70, like $100, they're probably gonna spend over that, and you're probably gonna make the money back because of the loyalty that you gain from that customer. Because, you know, most people know this, is if you're constantly purchasing from a place, you're going to consistently purchase more and more. You know, when you move town, you're not gonna go back to a restaurant, you're gonna go to the new restaurant, and then you're gonna build up loyalty there. So you wanna keep those people loyal to you. So that's a really big thing, is selling gift card futures or something like that. The next thing that I would recommend for a lot of business owners is to transition stuff to online as much as possible. So for us, for example, like, you know, as a marketing agency, an online marketing agency, we don't really go to clients or anything like that. But we created online programs, we created online offerings, we decreased the price of some of our programs, we were more flexible with payment options. So taking things online is really big. And then the final one, as I just said, is keeping things flexible with your clients. Making sure they're still paying you, obviously, but you know, if you have an $1,000 payment that's coming up and the client can't afford it, maybe split it and do 4 by 250, or you know, 10 by 100 if you can afford that, you know, that cash flow buffer. You know, making sure that you're being flexible and being accommodating to everyone. Because at the end of the day, as business owners, we all need to be in this together. Like just today, for example, as well, there was, you know, Chris was talking about getting a photographer who's a friend, and he was offering us discounts. I'm like, no, like he should charge us full freight, because that's what friends would do, is, you know, we want to pay him in full so we can make sure that we're taking advantage of him, and you know, he's getting that reciprocal relationship. So yeah, I think those are my points there for people in the current crisis.
So pretty much just like adapting on the fly.
That's the biggest thing. It's like we adapted, like, Chris and I had an existing office, and we were like, oh, what are we gonna do? And we changed it, and then Chris and I, you know, just started working from home. Adapting on the fly is the biggest thing, and the constantly moving landscape, you just need to adapt.
All right, so how do you personally negotiate with clients? What should one keep in mind before, during, and then after the negotiations?
So for me personally, I actually don't negotiate on price. My price is my price. I don't negotiate on price. I negotiate on payment terms, and sometimes I only have some set payment terms, but I am flexible if that's needed. But my price is my price. Now, for like actual advice on negotiation, is that you need to always make sure that the other party needs to feel like they're getting a win. And that sounds like an obvious thing to do, but you know, when you're negotiating for like big house prices or something like that, if the person's at 850 and you're at 800, go to 827, and then like it's closer to their number than closer to your number. They feel like they got a win, or whatever it is, like, 823, so they feel like they get the win. The bigger discount is make sure that everyone wins, because at the end of the day, that was only what, $2,000, but the deal gets done. So that's my biggest thing, is making sure that both parties win, but also making sure that things are done in fair exchange. Fair exchange rules the world. So you as a supplier need to be motivated enough to actually do the work for the client, and the client needs enough buy-in to make sure that they're going to commit and they're going to work with you. That's a really big thing, is fair exchange. You need to focus on that and keep that in the top of your mind all times. So yeah, those are my tips for negotiation.
All right, and then so how do you keep your sales and marketing competencies up to date?
For me, it's practical. It's the doing every single day. Is Mondays and Tuesdays I don't do sales calls, or maybe on Tuesdays, but I don't do sales calls. Mondays and Tuesdays are more marketing and seeing what's going on and actually being a practitioner in this game. So much so, like, I actually jump into ad accounts, doing email campaigns, looking at different content. Like today we were trying different things. I think that's a big thing, but also like sales and marketing, to me, like, I love this stuff. It's what I love to do. So I may as well keep learning about it and keep on doing it. So that's the biggest thing, is get involved in it every single day.
And could you recommend any useful resources for marketing sales skills?
One, my Facebook group, my free Facebook group, Digital Marketing Beasts. That's definitely a big one because I constantly go live in there and just update people on what's going on in my life and what's going on in marketing and sales. That's a really big one. But also what I recommend to people, and I recommend this to my students, is that you need to do things with intent. So I actually think Instagram and Facebook, you're spending your time scrolling on there, can be reckless and you can just lose all this time. But it also can be really, really positive if you scroll and look, okay, this person's trying a carousel, this person's trying a reel, this person's doing this ad, this angle. That's a really big thing, is actually scrolling with intent. That will help you out a lot.